What's up guys, your girl Luca here, back with another video, and today I will be discussing the Kinda Funny Xcast interview with Phil Spencer. But before we get into that, if I can ask you guys to please hit the like button, it would be much appreciated. So kind of a different setup today in regards to what I'm doing with my stream, but StreamYards does not want to work, so we're going to use Streamlabs instead. And yeah, now here's the thing. Phil Spencer is a, masterclass when it comes to doing interviews. He's one of my favorite liars for a reason. But, recently Xbox has been taking more L's. That's kind of what they do. It's L after L after L for them, right? But the most recent L has to be the release of Redfall, which is released to abysmal reviews, and people are very, very upset about the game. Now, me personally, I sat down, I played it for a bit, played it for about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I will have to say, I think the game, technical issues aside, is uninspired, and I think it's very much deserving of the low review scores that it has, because it's just it's a dead game, in my opinion. It's a lacking game, I'll say that instead, right? So, Phil Spencer, he came on, he did this Kinda Funny interview, and I must say, I will commend the Kinda Funny crew, the Xcast crew, for the questions they decided to ask him, the way that they phrased the questions. They didn't shy away from the harder questions, and I can respect that, and I appreciate them for taking the time to actually, put that information out there and get him to respond to most of the questions that people have about Xbox and Xbox's future, and thoughts on Redfall and everything, right? The interesting thing is, the very interesting thing about the interview is Phil Spencer's demeanor throughout the entirety of it. He was fairly apologetic and appeared to be contrite, that is, when it came to how he was feeling. He stated he was upset with himself, he was frustrated, he was disappointed, all of the above. And I'm just like, listen, buddy, as you should be, honestly speaking, because at this point, we are way past that moment of, yeah, we're going to give Xbox the benefit of the doubt. They don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. There have been multiple instances that Phil himself references in which Xbox has flat out lied. Not even under-delivered, flat out lied. The 60 FPS for their games being one of them. Again, Phil Spencer, he references this, right? So, overall, I thought it was a very excellent interview, and I would advise people to go check it out instead of just watching clips on YouTube and watching clips on Twitter. The clips do not show the full story. They do not capture all the context in the moment, and I feel like if you guys were to sit and listen to the interview, you would get a better idea of everything that's being said, why it's being said, and how it's being said. Now, again, despite the fact that I thought it was an excellent interview and I appreciated Phil's demeanor in it, and I appreciated the boys for asking him these harder questions, I'm at this point when it comes to Xbox, and Phil especially, where there's pretty much nothing he can really say to have me changing my mind on how I feel about the brand as of right now. I think that they make a lot of mistakes, and it's unfortunate because it's been years and yet they still seem to be making the same mistakes. They've gotten better in several ways, but in the main key way they've not gotten better is being consistent with releasing quality first-party titles that do not absolutely disappoint and just prove everyone right once again, where it says, well, what's the point of having an Xbox at this time? Now, some folks may claim like, oh, you're being a doomer, Luca. But here's the thing, again, Phil Spencer himself states everything that we've been stating. And the most interesting aspect of this interview as well is that he was using key phrases and key language associated with this community's language, like, you should feel like a first-class citizen when playing on the Xbox. There's just several things that he said that made me think, okay, like we already were aware of this, but it was one of those, like, yeah, no, he definitely listens to these shows. He listens to these shows. He checks out what people are saying in the community. He clearly cares enough to reference things that we've been saying since I joined the community in 2016 and beyond then, So I'm going to take some key aspects from the Kinda Funny interview and go over them. I'm looking at my phone now because it's where I have the notes. But yeah, so first and foremost, they are going to appeal the CMA position. You know, fantastic. So we got another couple years of this freaking nonsense, but that is what it is, right? Other than that, like, he notes that he hates disappointing the community, which, you know, interesting, because that's mostly what they do. You know, acknowledges how they stated that they would deliver 60 FPS, but they're not delivering 60 FPS, and that was the punch in the chin, and it's rightfully so. Acknowledges and understands our frustrations with that, you know, but that being said, there are certain things when it comes to certain creative aspirations of the team that he's not going to push back against. So take, for instance, if, you know, Arcane wants to come and they make a game. I mean, they were working on this game before Xbox acquired them, but like, say they came to Xbox and they were like, hey, we want to make a certain game that's not typically what we make, right? You know, Phil's not going to push back against those creative aspirations. He wants to give the teams the ability to work on titles outside of what they normally work on, which I think is excellent. But in my opinion, I think that there's a difference between creative aspirations and allowing those to flourish versus letting games be trash. You know, if you're just because you're a creative doesn't automatically mean that whatever idea that you have for a game is good. All right, there's a reason there's a bunch of poorly rated titles that exist on Steam. Just a little flutter, just several titles in certain games that are just, you know, they're just not good. They're just games, and people are like, I have this idea, I'm gonna make this game, and it's trash. Okay, it's trash. So it's like, I think there's a difference between that and then, like, you know, quality control. Like, if you come through and you see, like, hey, this idea that you guys have for this game, that's great and all, but it's like a bad idea. This game sucks. All right. I think there's a little bit of a difference there. So, and Phil stated that when it came to Redfall, they delivered a game that was below what their internal process review was. So they have like an internal system in which they go over the games and they state like, okay, this is what we think the game is going to launch at in regards to Metacritic score, in regards of a fan reaction. But then he stated that when it came to Redfall, that the game fell under, let's see here, the game is double digits lower for review than they thought would launch. It's below their internal metrics, which I'm just kind of like, you guys really saw this game and thought it'd score higher, really? Because like, when I saw people coming out with their, you know, their fan scores and everything, I was like, man, those scores are generous. Those scores are generous, because at this point, when it comes to Redfall especially, and just this community in general and games in this space, if developers come out in 2023 and state that they are launching their games on these next-gen systems, which are more than capable of playing games at 60 FPS, if they come out and state like, hey, we're launching this game as 30 FPS without a 60 FPS patch, the game is going to come out being a technical disaster, essentially a Gotham Knights and Redfall. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, Phil did state that they are committed to fixing the game as they work on a 60 FPS patch. You know, he acknowledges that it is definitely 100% an issue that they are coming out and charging $70 for these games that do not even come close to meeting this concept of what a $70 game is. All right. They asked, the Kind of Funny guys asked about, you know, why didn't you just delay the game? And then he discussed that there's a difference between creative vision versus execution versus reception, essentially, right? So if the vision doesn't match the production timeline, then yeah, they'll push the game back. You know, if they notice that there's some bugs and issues, they'll push the game back. But when it came to the creative vision of this title, and especially this, and he stated that player feedback has been like, the title in itself is what the issue is. Like, and I can agree with that, because I've seen people say it and I say it myself. It's not just the fact that the game has bugs and has all these other issues and launched at 30 FPS. It's the game is uninspired. That's really what it comes down to. And no amount of delays and pushes could have fixed that in regards to where the game is now. They would have had to take it back to the drawing board, essentially, and it would have been more than just, they would have needed more than just 1 year to delay it. So Phil acknowledged that they need to be more honest and transparent about what they're giving us. You know, they show games running on PC versus knowing games are launching on console at 30 FPS. You know, he states that the consoles are the most committed consumer base, the most committed customers when it comes to financial support. And they need to be better. They need to be way better at that, taking care of their customers when it comes to the console space. He makes like a little flippant comment about, like, you know, if I keep making these mistakes, maybe I'll be out of here. I don't know. You know, he made that comment there. And he stated that he has seen the pushes and the calls for people being like, no, get Phil Spencer the fuck up out of here. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing, right? He's seen that. And yeah, you know, it sucks, doesn't it? It does suck when you go on socials and people are like, you suck at your job. You're doing an awful job. It's been years and nothing has really changed in regards to player reception and player perception of the Xbox brand and what it is, but it is what it is, right? And he admitted that they put out contradictory information. He notes, I think this is especially important, he notes that the Xbox community should demand better from the Xbox team in itself because they have the resources from Microsoft, that is. They should do better. And he stated how, like, you know, they'll gain this momentum when they're putting out these titles, and then they lose it. They just lose momentum over just something dumb fucking happens, and it's like, okay, momentum done. They should have canceled fucking Redfall, in my opinion. But, you know, how would it have? I mean, how would it have looked? Okay, we did this corporate takeover, and we've seen your game. It's trash. We're canceling it. Like, yeah, no, it would not have looked good. But at this point, it's like, do you want to be seen as the bad guy, or do you want to be seen as the losers? And that's what Xbox is seen as, the losers. And Phil acknowledges that too. He's like, you know, we're in third place, baby. And then he did further elaborate on that and talked about a continuity in the console space and how, you know, people are playing games from last generation. They're still playing them on their next generation hardware. So it's harder to I guess, convince people to get rid of their PlayStation, but in my opinion, like, I am of the mind that there's nothing, like, have all of them, have all the systems. As it stands right now, in my opinion, you don't need a fucking Xbox, okay? You don't need a fucking Xbox. The games come on PC. If you got a PC, play them on PC. Yeah, you don't need an Xbox. Now, me personally, I got an Xbox Series X, I got an Xbox Series S, I got my gaming PC, I got a PS5, I got a Switch, right? I got everything just because I like having these things, right? But, you know, he talks about how people don't want to go out and, like, get rid of anything, and there's no clean slate when it comes to these generations anymore, and I'm just like, dude, there doesn't need to be a clean slate. He makes a comment about, like, okay, just because we put out, like, fantastic titles, amazing games that do well, it doesn't mean that, you know, anything's really going to change in regards to where we are in this space. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I'm just like, Phil, what? I mean, listen, there's that concept, right? And I understand what you're saying, because there's no beating someone who's already ahead of you. They're just going to continue going forward, at least, especially with the momentum that the Switch especially, right? But that PlayStation already has in regards to this space. They're just going to continue adding on to their sales. I get that concept, but at the same time, you say it like, okay, just because we release these titles doesn't mean how would you even know how would you know? How would you know if you release consistently good titles back to back to back, that it wouldn't make that difference? You don't know, because you don't do that. Xbox doesn't do that. They don't release consistent titles like that to even know or be aware of that. So I'm just kind of like, all right, Phil. Then they continue with the interview. He stated that until we have a controller in our hands and we're smiling when we're playing their games, none of his words should matter. I 100% agree with that. Like I said, I like Phil Spencer, seemingly as, like, a person, the persona he puts forth in these public spaces, you know, who he is as a public figure. I like Phil Spencer. You know, I think he seems like a genuinely stand-up guy, just based on perception, right? Perception's not always reality, whatever, right? But, like, when it comes to his word, I don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. I've not believed anything that comes out of his mouth for years. Again, one of my favorite liars, him, and then Jim Ryan, another one of my favorite fucking liars, okay? Aaron Greenberg, too, another one of my favorite liars. Just my favorite liars here, man. He stated that they did not do a good job offering the internal resources that they had to help Arcane Austin. They didn't go out of their way to throw some of their people in there to help them fix their shit. You know, they were right in the middle of the game, and he didn't want them to jump in and try to take over from that. You know, he stated that when it came to Starfield, that it's still early on, so they should be good when it comes to that. Okay, we'll see with that. And one of the most interesting aspects of the interview, for me, in my opinion, is when they talked about Starfield for a second. Now, it was very interesting, and I was just kind of like, brother, I need y'all to start being serious for 1 second, because dude asked a question where he's like, oh, should we expect, 30 FPS, when it comes to 30 FPS and 60 FPS, and Starfield to deliver on that? And Phil's just like, yep. And then no one bothered to, like, ask him to elaborate. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, so are you saying for sure that Starfield is going to be a 60 FPS? Because I don't believe you at this point. But you said yep like it. And then he had time to elaborate because he went on this spiel when it came to the next question that they asked. So, I don't know. Overall, I thought it was an interesting interview. I thought it was an excellent interview. I think you guys should definitely check it out. But as it stands right now, I don't believe anything that comes out of that man's mouth. And you shouldn't either. And, I mean, it is what it is, man. But yeah, that's it for me. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Peace.